exact timings, what should that spiritual state be, etc., etc. For all of this, you need the sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Without the Rasul of Allah, there is no deen. Without the Rasul of Allah, there is no Quran. Without the Rasul of Allah, there is no Sharia. The Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is who explains to you. لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ. What has been revealed to them, that is what you will explain. So the method must be correct. So another word for that method we keep, when it comes to the physical component, the aspect of it, we call that fiqh. The fiqh of fasting, the sunnah of fasting, it's all the same. Whether you call it the sunnah of fasting, how the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala performed this fast, whether you call it the fiqh of fasting, it's the same thing. So when both components are there, then that becomes acceptable. But if the one is not there, a person says that I have a mountain's level of sincerity that I will come and do this fast, but I will do it on my own terms. Meaning, for example, he says that I will stay away from water, but maybe a small morsel I will have. Or he says that I will fast pretty much the entire time. A couple minutes here and there, I will adjust for myself. Maybe he adds on more time. But he says that no, I won't wake up too early. That time for suhoor is too early for me. I'll start it from after Fajr. From sunrise I'll start it. But maybe I'll end later as well. In fact, he says I'll add minutes to it. So it doesn't matter how much sincerity a person brings to that action will not be accepted. Why? Because in reality, that's also not sincerity. Because that's not ikhlas. Ikhlas is to do what makes the person who you're doing it for happy. What is ikhlas? Sincerity, or what ikhlas consists of, is that the one who you're doing it for, it should be done in the way that that person is happy with it. Not the way how you want it. So if you bring you into the picture, then what is that? Is that lillah now? Or is that for someone else? That's for yourself. That's not lillah. That's not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're going to give something, that's why also in the part of the adab and etiquettes of giving hadayah and gifts, it's a little slightly different but similar. That you give something to someone what they like. That is the best level of giving gifts as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already said that the only deen, inna ad-deena inda Allah al-Islam. And Islam, we said as well, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has brought us. So the only accepted way, the only accepted fast, the only accepted salah is that salah, that sawm, that zakah which Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam explained to us. So doing it in any other manner will not be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With that said, so sawm in the Arabic language refers to, as we said, that this was already something which is known amongst the Arab. It means to abstain, abstinence. If right now a person is not eating and drinking, linguistically he will be called sa'im as well. He's doing sawm, and he's abstaining. So the Shari'i definition, when it comes to the fiqh of it, how Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what we see from the Sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, it's a very specific type of abstinence. What you abstain from and when you abstain from it. So a person abstains with intention from dawn to dusk from the following things. So abstain with intention. Intention means niyyah. Intention refers to niyyah. Niyyah means that a person in his heart, niyyah is in the heart, that a person makes this intention that this day, the following day, the coming day, suhoor is still the night, so the following day, the day that's coming up, this is the day that I will be fasting, I'll be observing a fast for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Niyyah doesn't have any words as such. There are no masnoon words that are to be recited for the niyyah, as a common misconception. There are no words which are transmitted from Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that at the time of suhoor, that a person has to say these words. Many times on pamphlets, on messages, people print things that this should be said. There's no such thing. No such dua has been mentioned. Yes, once we've done iftar, then there is the dua of iftar, that we recite Allahumma laka sumtu ala rizq till the end, and other du'as as well. At the time of suhoor, there's no such dua. And intention, as we said, is not specific to any language as well. Hence, it doesn't need to be said, nothing needs to be said in Arabic. So to abstain with intention from dawn, yani from the time of Fajr, Salatul Fajr. When you see on the timetable where Fajr time is written, before that a person should stop their suhoor. The suhoor, or the eating, should stop before that time comes in. Before that time. There's no buffer zone. That's something to say that this is kind of grace period as such. It needs to stop before that. Until sunset. Until the time of ghurub. Ghurub shams, when the sun sets. On the sunset issue, I'd like to point out something, which is that the timings that we use are calculated, obviously. None of us go out and actually see the horizon because there are buildings, etc. around us anyway, so over here it's not even practical. The timing that we use is a calculated timing. So a calculated timing has two things to it. One is that a calculated sunset differs based on astronomical comments, as astronomers will say as well, that a eye-based sunset, or a person visualizing himself sunset versus a calculated sunset will have 1 to 2 minute difference sometimes. Okay, and what is calculated versus what is visual to the naked eye, it differs by a minute or so. That's one thing. Second thing is that the sun obviously doesn't set at the exact minute every time. This is something which is very self-evident, that it's not only at the end of the minute that every time the sun sets. The sun is not programmed based on our timetable. Sometimes it will set based on, let's say for example, 5:45 and 20 seconds. Sometimes it will say 5:45 and 30 seconds in actual fact. But the timetables will not take the seconds into consideration. So Google will sometimes do that, it will round up or round down for you. It will either round up or it will round down. So it's 5:45 and 20 seconds, it may round up, round down, meaning to 5:45. If it's 5:45 and 50 seconds, it may round up to 5:46 the next minute as well. Taking these two factors into consideration, that visually looking at something versus a calculated time, plus this idea of rounding up and down, what we do is that we add these 2-3 minutes sometimes to the, not sometimes, we do add 2 to 3 minutes to this, to make sure that it is sunset. Okay. Now, if, for example, our timetable says a certain minute, and you are looking at the sun, it has set, by all means. By all means, a person can have iftar if what they see is other than what is on the timetable. There's no doubt about that. That you know that the visual, what a person sees himself, that will take preference over what is written on this timetable. So for this precautionary measure, and the precaution is not just based on mere precaution, it's based on how the system, how it works. That's why we add these minutes there. So that's why a person may sometimes say that, look, and here on Google, it's already showing this, but why is the masjid? No one's trying to get 2 minutes out of you. We're all on the same page, we're all fasting. The idea isn't to make someone fast 2 minutes more. And then you come to hadith and say that, isn't it mustahab, isn't it sunnah that as soon as it's sunset, then you should break it? Definitely. The question is that what minute, what point is the sunset? That's why we added to it. If it's proven with conviction, which is not that based on Google, whatever time that pops up, that the sun has actually set, and by the visual, by visual means, then by all means a person can break their fast as well. So what does a person abstain from? From food, drink, and sexual gratification. All three of these things a person stays away from. This is called Sawm in Sharia. We'll take questions at the end, inshallah, if anyone has any questions. Now, when does fasting become compulsory upon us as we follow every year? Number one, by sighting of the new moon of Ramadan, which this year if it is sighted on Sunday night, this coming, not tonight, the next Sunday, the coming Sunday, if it's sighted, then we will begin our Taraweeh that night, on Sunday night, and then we will begin fasting the next day. If it is not sighted, if we don't see the moon of Ramadan on the 29th of Sha'ban, which is Sunday night, then the next day, Monday night, we'll have Taraweeh and followed by fasting on Tuesday. So that's completion of the 30 days of Sha'ban. The next question is, who must fast? Who is it obligatory upon to fast? The following individuals, yani if the following conditions are found in an individual, he or she must observe the fast, the Sawm. Number one, Muslim, Islami. Anyone who is a Muslim, only they can perform ibadah. Number two, sane. People who are insane, they have dementia, etc., then they don't have to perform any thing of Sharia. Number three, mature, baligh. In Sharia we refer to as baligh. Baligh means that either by age meaning if they are 15 years of age by the lunar month, by the lunar calendar, right? Not by the Gregorian calendar, but based on the Islamic calendar. Once they reach the age of 15, then they are automatically baligh, or by physical means, yani nocturnal emission, etc. So this is a fard of Islam. Okay. Although in our culture we may sometimes say that even if a boy, girl they're 14, 15 years old, 16 years old, they may refer to them as bacha, kids. But this is an obligation, this is a fard. So it doesn't matter whether one day they just wake up a little bit tired, or they have school, or they have an exam coming up, it is haram for them to miss this fast. Haram. Completely forbidden. This is a fard of Islam, it's not a choice. As long as a person is baligh, then they must fast. Healthy, meaning their health hasn't deteriorated, a person's health is not such that by them fasting that it will further aggravate their health, that they are not able to, they are chronically ill, they're very ill. None of that, if that is not found, they are considered to be healthy. Second last one, that they are resident, meaning they're not traveling. They are not musafir, they're not traveling. Over here, there's an important point to understand, that the traveler who has been given a compensation in Sharia, a concession in Sharia, that's if a person is already in the state of travel. What do I mean by this? Is that if, for example, a person is to travel later this day, for example, he has a 9 o'clock flight, 9 a.m. flight. He is traveling for work, for example. So he has a flight 9 a.m. This is Ramadan, for example. Then today he must start fasting. This morning, that morning when he wakes up, he must be sa'im. He has to be fasting that day, because he's not a traveler yet. So a future travel, future includes even a few hours later. So because a person will be traveling later that day, that doesn't allow for him to miss the fast day. This happens, for example, some people go Ramadan during the month of Ramadan. People travel during the month of Ramadan, whether it's personal reasons, whether it's for ibadah, for umrah, whatever it may be. So that day you still need to fast, unless your flight for some reason is 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., before suhoor time or during suhoor time, before Fajr time comes in. Then you don't have to fast. You don't have to fast. It's not saying that you cannot fast. Fasting in the month of Ramadan, even if a person is musafir, is traveling, it's best to fast. Why? Because the barakat and blessings of Ramadan, the fast of Ramadan, cannot be achieved outside. Qada and making up fast, that is concession. That's that you have to do anyways. But you won't get the same blessings of the month of Ramadan. A person won't get the same blessings of the month of Ramadan. So if a person is resident, not traveling, then again it's compulsory on them. And the last one is specific to ladies, which is that they are free from menses or postnatal bleeding. Menses, they're monthly, and postnatal meaning after birth. Over here, for the ladies, we only mention this. Often sisters ask about pregnancy, during pregnancy and breastfeeding as well. So pregnancy and breastfeeding in and of themselves are not valid excuses, meaning because of the fact, just because you are pregnant doesn't mean that you don't have to fast. Now, with that said, if fasting will lead to some harm to the child, for example, or it leads to extreme sickness for the pregnant lady or for the breastfeeding lady, then that's a separate issue. But pregnancy in itself, the mere fact that the lady is pregnant, that in itself is not a reason. But if it leads to harm to either herself or to the child, then there will be some concession. Especially for breastfeeding, there are ways in which a person can prepare for their fast as well, which, for example, is by pumping milk from before, if that's one option for many. Either way, anyone who is pregnant or breastfeeding should consult with a Muslim gynae. That's the best. That you speak to them, go over your health records, how has it been previously, and maybe even have a practice fasting day. Some Muslimat, some Muslim doctors, female Muslim doctors, they prescribe this for their patients, that they have maybe a practice day in Sha'ban or something. Kind of see where they are, how it goes, and they can take it from there. So these are things, this is all part of, as we said, preparing for it. Once we understand the importance of the fard of Islam, then we'll do all of these things. Right? We'll make sure that we get it done. Because we understand the importance of our children's walima and their nikah, etc., so we prepare for it for months on end. Because such an important thing, if we don't do it right, if everything is not right, it'll be a means of embarrassment for ourselves, our family, what will others say, and then it's a time of happiness. We want to make sure that they are happy, which is all fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm saying that just as we understand and we give importance to these things, and you prepare for months on end for these, whether it be financially, mentally, all sorts of things are invested into this. The fast of Ramadan and any other fard of Islam, in fact, any other tenet or any ibadah of Islam, we should take even more seriously and prepare for that in the correct manner. What breaks the fast? So there are a couple of rules that are there, but means what would cause the fast to break. Number one, when a fast-breaking agent, which is simply put, for example, food, right, reaches the throat, stomach, or the intestines via the mouth, nose, or rectum. Right? So if something which, for example, food a person consumes by mouth, this is a very obvious way a person drinks water, this is a very obvious agent which would break a person's fast. But what you should look at is that if it goes through the mouth, nose, or rectum, right? So the manfad, we refer to it as manfad, meaning the method, the way from where it enters the body, that's also important. The way something enters the body. That will also determine whether the fast breaks or not. So it's not everything, it's not every method, or it's not every path into the body which would render the fast broken. For example, if a person puts some eardrops, right? If a person puts eardrops through his ears, that would not render the fast broken, right? Because it doesn't reach the what we refer to as the jawf, the intestines or the stomach. Similarly, if a person is dehydrated and he takes IV, right? Or people who are diabetic and they take their, even if it's by the belly, because it doesn't go directly into the stomach, it goes into the bloodstream. So even people who are diabetic can take their shots, etc., whilst they are fasting. Or through sexual gratification. Sexual gratification means the actual act of sex. If a person kisses, fondles, these are makruh, depending if it would lead to breaking it or not. But otherwise, the actual act itself, that is what will render the fast broken. So eye drops, nicotine patches, suppository would break, but eye drops would not. Similarly, a nicotine patch, that would not break the fast. Now, it would make it makruh. It makes it makruh, definitely. It's not advisable. But if a person does it, that won't break the fast itself. Suppository would, through the anal, would break the fast. Now, when a person breaks his fast, there are a couple of things, or there are two situations. Either only qada, which is making up the fast, only that is necessary, or qada plus kafara becomes necessary. Qada means making up the fast, kafara means an expiation. So some breakers of the fast would require both, meaning both qada and kafara, and other times it would be only qada. So if a person, these are examples for only qada. If a person mistakenly eats. Now there's a difference between mistakenly and forgetfully. Forgetfully means what? That you don't remember that you're sawm, that you're fasting. Many of us were in the habit that whenever we pass a water fountain, we drink from that water fountain. So first couple of days of sawm, of fasting, you're not used to it yet. It's just maybe the first, second day of Ramadan, you came into the masjid, you see the water fountain as habit, you drink from it. This is called forgetfully. This is overlooked. Sharia overlooks this. In the famous hadith of Rasulullah that a person is not taking a task for this of forgetfully eating or drinking during sawm. Same thing with drinking. This was an example of drinking, eating. Same thing. If a person he's used to during work, if he passes by and there's some chocolate there or cookies there, he picks it up, he eats it, he forgets that he's fasting. Mistakenly means that you didn't intend to eat or drink it. Maybe you're gargling your mouth, especially in Ramadan for wudu, a person should be very careful. Or you're doing miswak, or you're removing something from your teeth. Now, as you are gargling for wudu, inadvertently, mistakenly, water goes down your mouth. I mean, you know you're fasting. You didn't intend to do, you didn't do it purposely either, but that's what a mistake is, accidentally. An accident, it's not that you don't remember that you're fasting. You do remember it. You know you're fasting. But for whatever reason, he slipped, he maybe gargled too far back. So because of that, the water went down. Mistakenly can also be that a person, he's looking at the timing and he sees the wrong time. For example, it's iftar time. If he looks at one date except for the next, and not the other, not the correct date. As we know, the Maghrib time will be increasing as we're going into Ramadan. So if you look at the previous week versus this week, then a person thinks that it's already Maghrib time, it's already iftar time, so now he eats it. So this would also be a mistake, but this would require qada. If a person eats even a few minutes before that time, then that would be qada would be required. Or during suhoor time, it can happen the other way as well. That he thinks he still has time for suhoor, but it turns out that he does not, that the time has already expired, Fajr time is already in. Or if a person consumes something that does not give bodily benefit. For example, a person eats paper, pebbles. Paper, some people have this habit. Or in school, they chew on their pencil nib or their eraser. Now, inadvertently, a person eats that. That would cause qada on you. Third one, medicine. If a person takes medicine by other than the mouth. Right? So because the passage is not through the mouth, because of this reason, only qada will be necessary. So although we said the suppository etc. would break the fast, and it does break the fast, but only qada would be necessary. Nasal spray as well, this would break. Asthma inhalers, etc. This would all break a person's fast. Coercion means someone forced you into it. Some friends thought it was very funny to pour water down someone's mouth, or they forced him to eat something. First of all, the one who's doing it, he's also sinful. The one who does it is also sinful. But the one to whom it was done, although it's not his fault, not every time where qada is necessary doesn't mean that a person is getting a sin. For example, in this case, if someone forced you into it means that they held you down, they put water down your throat. They forced food into your mouth. Obviously, the person himself is not sinful. But at the end of the day, he still consumed the food. Right? So, qada will be necessary in this case. Qada means one fast after the day of Eid. After the day of Eid, one fast needs to be made up. Or a person ejaculates by kissing, fondling, or is it self-induced? Self-induced is haram. Fondling, kissing, although in itself with one's spouse it's permissible, it's halal, but during Ramadan, whilst a person is fasting. At night is halal, obviously. Whilst a person is fasting, then fuqaha say that it's makruh for the person who, especially younger, the one who knows that it will lead towards sexual acts itself, then it would not be permissible. But if the actual act was not done, but he did ejaculate, this would cause a qada, not a kafara. Or purposely vomiting a mouthful. If a person purposely, an example would be that the person sticks, a toothbrush or something purposely into his mouth to make himself vomit. So if that is done and it's a mouthful, then this would cause a qada as well. How do you know if something is a mouthful? That if it's hard for you to keep it in. If it's difficult to keep that vomit back, it comes out, and it's difficult to keep it back, that's called a mouthful. Or purposely swallowing a mouthful, meaning the vomit came up it's not self-induced. The vomit was not self-induced. It came up because of nausea, but he purposely swallowed it back in. He didn't want it to come out. So he purposely swallows it back in and it's a mouthful. This would break the fast as well. So what a person should do, if inadvertently, not self-induced by itself, if vomit is coming out by itself, then let it come out. A person should let it come out, and that would not break his fast. So these are the only two cases where vomiting would break a person's fast. Either you purposely do it, a mouthful, or you purposely swallow down a mouthful. The third one, or at least on this page, not starting the fast at all, which is again impermissible. When a person does not have a valid excuse and he does not fast that day, this again is haram, it's impermissible. However, when he's making up the fast, he only has to make up one fast, a qada. There's no kafara for someone who never started the fast. Or if you fast due to a medical need, there's no sin over here, a medical need, because of that a person has to break their fast, that would be permissible, it's allowed, but again there is qada of that after. The examples of qada plus kafara are few. Number one, a person deliberately eats or drinks anything which gives bodily benefit. So whilst a person is fasting, they purposely eat something. Whilst they are fasting, they purposely drink something, and there's no medical need, or they're not traveling. None of that is found. Normal person, just on a day, he just decides to break his fast. No good reason. This would require qada, meaning one day needs to be made up, plus kafara. Now what is the kafara? That will come inshallah. We'll do it on the next slide. Eating, drinking would include, it means consumption. What do you mean by eating and drinking? Consuming something via the mouth. So that includes smoking, vaping, all of that's part of that. Or if a person has intercourse, knowing that one is fasting, he purposely performs it. So both the husband and wife, given that both did it purposely, if one spouse, if for example the husband forced himself onto his wife, then the wife will only have to do qada, not kafara. What is the kafara? That is fasting for 2 consecutive months. So anyone who has the health ability of doing that, which are most people, then they would have to fast 2 consecutive months. So might as well a person not do something like that. It's very difficult. If a person has multiple days that they need to do qada and kafara for, multiple times they've done this. They weren't supposed to break their fast whilst the month of Ramadan, but they broke their fast without any good reason, and this happened multiple times, over many years, for example. One kafara will suffice for all of those. The qada he'll have to do for each of them. For example, if this happened 10 times, he'll have to do 10 qadas. But one kafara is sufficient for all of these instances. Now those that don't have the physical ability, they are very old, they're very sick, then those people can feed 60 needy people 2 meals. They can feed 60 miskin, faqir, someone who does not have wealth. You can feed them 2 meals morning, evening, 2 meals can be fed. Or alternatively, whatever the fitrah amount is, that amount can be given per person as well. Now, once a person does break his fast, as you see that the entire discussion of fiqh of fasting has to do with breaking the fast, right? If we're going to have a workshop on salah, we won't just concentrate on breaking the salah, right? Firstly, we'll start with what to do in salah. Sawm is not like that. Fasting is a very simple ibadah. All it is don't do these 3 things. You can actually have a fiqh of fasting workshop done in one minute. As long as everyone just does this simple thing. Don't eat, drink, and have any relationship from this time to this time. That's the end of your fast. That's all it is. So the only discussion really that comes up in fasting is, what would break it? What would happen once it's broken? Because the act himself, there's nothing really to do. There's no positive action that a person needs to take. It's an ibadah of imsak. Imsak meaning staying away from, which is what the meaning of taqwa is as well. Taqwa means that a person abstains from the wrongs. So this is the practical training, a practical training for taqwa. The ayah Kareemah says that why has Allah Ta'ala prescribed fasting? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So when a person is conscious about this, that this is halal, this is halal, this is halal, but only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will not consume this. There's no one watching. No one is here to see me. I'm alone in my home. I'm alone in my office. No one would even know. But despite that, it doesn't matter how much my hunger may be or how close it is to iftar time, I won't take a single sip of water. This is the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now what we want from this, what the Sharia wants from this, is that we translate this to outside of Ramadan as well, outside of fasting as well. That such things, they are haram, not even halal. I stayed away from halal things for hours a day. For 30 days I did this, and alhamdulillah, I was fine. And alhamdulillah, each and every one of us sitting here, we fasted for multiple decades over here. We're all living, right? No one died, no one had a very difficult time, nothing ever happened. In fact, what happens is those that overeat during iftar, they end up in the hospital. They're the ones that end up sick. They're the ones that end up with problems. The one that fast, they never end up with any problems. As long as the person is healthy enough for that. In fact, it is actually better for the person's health. So this exercise of taqwa, this process which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept for us, this ibadah of sawm, this is to bring that taqwa into our lives. Now once a person does break the fast and he was not supposed to, or even this would be more for those that were not supposed to break their fast, then the rest of the day, what should they do? Should they go around eating? Are they supposed to do that? Or for example, they mistakenly ate. Then they found out the ruling that I would have to do qada. So the rest of the day, it is not permissible for them to eat as well. This is called tashabbuh bis-saimin, to imitate the fasting people. Because the time of fasting, the time of Ramadan, this is still a mubarak, a blessed time. So in honor of this, and in respect of those that are around them, even if a person is staying alone, this is still the hukm. The command still remains that you're not supposed to eat for the rest of the day as well. So that would be a person who broke his fast and he wasn't supposed to, whether it was through mistake or any other foul reason. The second type of people who should imitate the fasting individuals are those ladies whose menses comes to an end during the middle of the day. If their menses finishes during the middle of the day, obviously they didn't fast in the beginning. Why? Because it was a hayd day of their menses, so they couldn't start their fast. Now that their menses has come to an end during the middle of the day, so after they perform the ghusl and whatnot, what should they do for the rest of the day? So the rest of the day until iftar, they also will not consume any food. They will not eat any food either. And that day will be part of the qada that they have to make up. Or if a child becomes mature, becomes baligh during the middle of the day, him also, he should abstain from eating for the rest of the day. Things that do not break the fast. Maybe a person thinks that this does break the fast, or there may be some misconceptions regarding these things. So to clarify, forgetfulness. Forgetfulness, this we all know, forgetfully a person ate, forgetfully a person drank. What should you do if you see someone forgetfully eating or drinking? Fuqaha discussed this as well. If you see someone forgetfully eating or drinking, then what should you do? So fuqaha divide people into two categories. They say either the person has strength, he's a young person, or even if he's not young, but he's okay, then you should remind the person. But if the person is a weak person, much older person, then you should let them be. Listen from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let them be. Wet dreams, if a person experiences this whilst fasting, this will not break the fast. Applying oil, perfume, itar, lotion, balm, etc., as long as you're not consuming it by mouth, all of this is valid, it's permissible. Or drawing blood. Now, although this is not recommended, that whilst we're fasting, that you draw blood because it leads to weakness. That's why in the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Aftar al-hajim wal-mahjum." Hijama, cupping, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, as if the person he's doing iftar, meaning that it's going to lead to weakness, then he may become unconscious and he's not eating, he's not drinking. It may lead to that, hence it's as if the person is almost doing iftar. Although itself it won't break the fast, but it's not recommended to do any of this whilst a person is fasting. Similarly, engaging in very strenuous activities, which if it's not necessary, if those that it's part of their work. For example, alhamdulillah, we see our brothers who are fast, mashallah, and they're still doing construction work, labor work. Allah Ta'ala accept their fast, Allah Ta'ala give them more strength. But if it's not required from your work itself, your job description, then unnecessarily this is not the time. Many times our youngsters, they play sports during, whilst they're fasting, after Salat al-Fajr. Now if you can maintain yourself for the rest of the day, by all means, it's permissible, okay, if you can. But I've met some that say that, we had a very tough game of football and now then I had to, break my fast. So then it's not permissible. That's not jaiz. You can't break a fard obligated fast for your sports and for play. Dust or smoke or something which enters like that into a person's throat, if a person is in a dusty place and dust goes in, or even if a person is taking a shower and then some steam goes in, purposely going in with that intention is impermissible. That would break the fast. Purposely, if a person goes to steam himself like that would not be allowed. Concentrated oxygen, those that end up in the hospital, sometimes they are given concentrated oxygen, that would not break the fast. Or merely tasting the food. Tasting the food, some people say eating one samosa is tasting the food. So that's a different tasting the food. That breaks the fast. Tasting the food means you put it on your tongue and you remove it. That's called tasting the food. Once it goes down your throat, that's not called tasting, that's called eating. So if a person tastes the food, that won't break the fast. However, it's makruh. Unnecessarily, if a person does it, that would be makruh. Or if waking up in the state of major impurity, yani ghusl is necessary. During the nights of Ramadan, the Quran Kareem says that it is halal to consummate with one spouse. This is permissible. Now, if a person wakes up and it's already Fajr time, they didn't have time for suhoor and whatnot, but they're in the state of najasa and they need to perform ghusl, this doesn't affect the fast in any way. You can continue fasting the rest of the day. This would be permissible. Or watering entering the ear, this does not break the fast. Things such as swimming, etc., should be avoided at all costs, because if it does, maybe it goes through the ear, but it's also possible it goes through the mouth, through the nose. Swallowing saliva, phlegm, that doesn't break the fast. Often a person salivates whilst he's fasting. Purposely collecting the saliva and then swallowing it, that's makruh. Using a miswak, in fact, it's mustahab, it's masnoon for us to use the miswak. The hadith which says that لا خلوف فم الصائم أطيب عند الله من ريح المسك. The smell of the fasting person is more pleasurable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than that of musk. So that is the smell which comes from the emptiness of the stomach. By the emptiness of the stomach, then it creates a certain smell that comes. Whatever smell that is coming because of the saliva, etc., that can be removed. That could be, it's permissible, rather it's mustahab, it's preferable to do that. Especially a person who is engaging with clients and others, your fasting shouldn't become a means of, become a reason for people to not want to meet with you. So you should keep your mouth clean and then speak to people in that manner. Disliked acts, what's makruh? Tasting without need, which we covered. Chewing. This is not referring to chewing bubblegum. Chewing bubblegum would break the fast. Why? Because there's sugar and things that are coated on top. So that person will swallow that. This means merely chewing on something. So merely chewing on something is makruh for two reasons. One reason is that it may accidentally go down your throat now. So that would break the fast. The second is, if you're chewing on something, someone else passing by, so another Muslim, he sees you, what are they going to think? It's Ramadan, he's not fasting. So the issue isn't that, well, it's between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No. There is a balance between اتقوا مواضع التهم, the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that stay away from places where you'd be unnecessarily accused for things. That's also part of deen. A person does, if you want to drink a bottle of water, you want to buy water, why would you go to the bar to buy it? You couldn't find any other place except a bar to buy a bottle of water? That's part of deen. That unnecessarily a person shouldn't put himself into these type of situations. You don't put yourself into a wrong situation. You don't make people think wrong about yourself. Nabi Ibrahim ﷺ, one of his du'as is, وَاجْعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِينَ وَاجْعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. Ya Allah, make it such that those that come after me, they have good things to say about me. Shouldn't want that people say wrong things about you, people think wrong things about you. Yes, if a person hasn't done anything wrong himself and he didn't put himself into that, despite that unnecessarily people say something, then you're obviously not mukallaf and responsible for that. But you shouldn't make it such that people think wrong. It also creates a wrong environment. Kissing and fondling, we said this is also makruh. What are some mustahabbat, preferable acts while a person is fasting? Eating suhoor, consuming. Ta'am al-suhoor is ta'am al-barakah, as it comes in the hadith. There is barakah in that time. And as delayed as possible, that is best. The closer it is to the time of Fajr, that is better. It is permissible. Sometimes, especially in the summer nights. Now, alhamdulillah, the nights will be longer, at least compared to when we were fasting in the summer. But sometimes a person, comes late from Taraweeh anyways, maybe an hour or so left, so they eat something and then they fall asleep. It's permissible, it's jaiz. However, delaying the suhoor and eating it, even if it's a date, suhoor doesn't mean you need to have an omelet. You need to have so much bread and whatnot. One, water is a part of suhoor. Dates are part of suhoor. And secondly, not delaying iftar. Once the time has actually come in of maghrib, then unnecessarily delaying the iftar is not good. As we've discussed before, valid excuse for missing fast, traveling, sickness. We also spoke about pregnancy and breastfeeding, that in themselves they're not, or extreme old age. Very extremely old, a person cannot fast because of that. Chronic illness. If there's someone who is in their 80s, 90s, and alhamdulillah they're doing well, then they have to fast as well. Many of us have heard of fidya. That fidya, the next amount a person gives. A person gives fidya for not fasting. Now this is for those people who can give fidya, the one who cannot fast at all throughout the entire year, and he has no hope of recovery or regaining health. Okay, so a person is so sick, they're chronically sick, they're so sick that they cannot fast neither in this season, nor the next season, nor in any other season. Okay, for some people, maybe a 17-hour fast may be very long, but they can manage 12-hour fast. So such people, they may not have to fast during the longer fast, during summer, for example, but they would have to do qada of that in winter. Okay, there you cannot opt out with saying that I'll just give the fidya. So this is only for those people that cannot fast at all throughout the year. If the fast is too long right now, but in the winter it's short enough for you to fast without harming yourself, then that is what a person will have to do. And what is the fidya? The sadaqatul fitr amount per day, a person can give that as well. We'll stop here, inshallah. If there are any questions, you can go ahead and ask, inshallah. We'll take one. Ji.
How long you can wait for iftar if you are traveling and you don't have no food, but next stop you have food, water and everything? How long you can delay?
The question is that how long can a person delay their iftar if they don't have anything available? If we don't have anything available, then that's the case. I mean, there's no a person will be responsible for that. But as soon as possible, as soon as a person finds something to do iftar, once the time is in, they should do it as fast as possible.
Make dua and the survival.
Sorry.
You can make the iftar dua of iftar.
Yeah, so what is the dua of iftar? Dua of iftar is that when a person, once they consume, they say Bismillah, consume their iftar, whether iftar upon dates is mustahab, it's masnoon. Then after that you say Allahumma laka sumtu wa ala rizqika aftartu. Now Allah, for your sake have I fasted, and upon your sustenance we break our fast as well.
So, I mean, when traveling, if you don't have any water or date with you, so you can make this.
Yes, you can make the dua later as well. Yes. Whenever a person does the iftar, whether it's a little delayed because of an excuse or otherwise, that's when you would read the dua.
So by saying it, will not fast the
No, by saying the dua, it doesn't break the fast. It's a good question, but no.
You have to do tashabbud bisawmin when it's not in Ramadan, like say tomorrow Monday fast.
No. The question is tashabbuh bis-sa'imin, meaning imitating the fasting people, is that obligatory outside of Ramadan? So no, it's not. It's not obligatory. That doesn't mean that if someone's fasting, you purposely go in front of them and annoy them as well. That also shouldn't happen. That's part of akhlaq. But as a obligation, there's no tashabbuh outside of the month of Ramadan.
So can you have dual intention like kafara when you do kafara? Can you also do it qada at the same day?
The question is, can you have dual intentions in fasting? So dual intentions in fasting does not work. It has to be one intention per fast. So especially with qada and kafara, qada has to be separate, so the one day and then the 60 days are on top of that.
60 days for one
So it's 60 days for any such act. As we said that if there are multiple times that a person has broken the fast unnecessarily, then the one kafara is sufficient for all of those.
One question. Generally, it is the impression of the people that when they take food or drink water by mistake, he is okay. There is no qada. But in your first image, it says qada is required.
Correct. So if mistakenly eating,
There is an ambiguity between these two.
so
If I have taken the water by mistake, qada is required then?
yes.
But usually the people, they have the impression, that's what I have heard in forgetful.
forgetful and mistaken two different things.
Being forgetful, right? And being mistake, what is the
No need to respond. So yeah, as we said, that mistakenly means that whilst knowing that you're fasting, you break it as a mistake. And forgetfulness means that you don't remember that you're fasting.
So if I don't remember, then it is okay.
Then that is okay. That's correct. Good.
Does excessive anger break your fast?
Excessive anger does not break your fast. But it happens often. People are excessively angry when they're fasting.
Okay. I noticed that, every time when Ramadan starts, the Masjid timetable for the fast, starting the fast and breaking. Especially when it starts the fast, they change the timetable, like they take it like one hour like ahead, like before. Like for example, the Fajr time is like 5 o'clock during normal days. And as soon as, the Ramadan starts, they take it to the 4 o'clock, like 1 hour back.
The Fajr time itself we never change. The Salatul Fajr in the Masjid. Yeah, so Salatul Fajr in the Masjid time change is different from the time of Fajr coming in. So the reason why the Masjid Fajr Salah we keep at 25 minutes from the time Fajr time begins, that is because most of us are up for suhoor anyways, so it's easier for people to make it to the masjid. There's a fiqh of setting timing in masajid for salah as well. So the number one thing that we keep in mind is what will lead to more musallis being able to come. So practically, if suhoor ends, let's say at 5 o'clock, and we're to keep Salatul Fajr at 6 o'clock, then in this 1 hour, most people do their suhoor and go to sleep. They pray and then they go to sleep. They won't come to the masjid. So the reason why we keep it closer to that time is so that you can have your suhoor, clean up, wash up, wudu, etc., and then make it to the masjid. After that, if a person wants to sleep, they can sleep after that.
So it's basically the very starting time.
So the time you have to make sure that you stop eating suhoor is the Fajr time, which is written, so a minute before that. Once Fajr time, not the time when the Salatul Fajr in the masjid is happening.
Time starts like Subha Sadiq, right?
Right. So Sadiq time. No, sorry, you had a question.
In case of kafara, if a person is old and poor, he cannot fast for 60 days, he cannot feed 60 people. What he should do?
You should wait if any of these two things happen. If not, then we make dua that Allah Ta'ala accepts whatever from it. No.
The slide mentioned something, and just do the back, but if someone's doing like stinja,
Doing istinja in the normal manner will not allow the water to reach the. Yes. If a person is in the state of traveling, then it's permissible for him to not fast during that time. Permissible. But as we said, then it's not. Yeah, no. Then he has to fast that day. He will be traveling. He's not a traveler. For a traveler, someone who is musafir, someone who is traveling, they can. Someone who will travel, he's not a musafir. Yeah, but he's not traveling right now.
Let's say you do miss a fast. After Eid, what time can you make up the fast?
So the day 2nd of Shawwal, the day after Eid, you can start. A person can fast any day from the 2nd of Shawwal. The Eid day is haram to fast, so that day we skip. From the next day, from the 2nd of Shawwal, then you can start fasting. Yeah, yes, definitely.
If you're traveling and you get to a time difference there, how do you break your fast?
Wherever you are.
Go longer then? Or do you go
Yes. Yes. If you're going West Coast, you're in trouble. You're going East Coast, you're good. Yeah. Yeah, the question is, this is an important question, that when people are traveling, there's obviously an hour difference. Going east would mean that, you're fasting lesser hours, and traveling west would often mean that it's more, so that you just go based off of where you are at the time. That's correct.
Yeah, applying to the same thing, right? If you're traveling back from India as an example, right? You end up having a fast for 24 hours or even more than 24 hours, depending upon how long is your layover, right? Let's say you have 4, 5, 6 hours of layover. Traveling for say 18 hours plus 6 hours of layover will be 24 hours of fasting.
Usually that doesn't happen, because depending where your layover is, if it would be sunset there.
India and come back from here, right? So even if you just go to Umrah and come from there, from this layover, let's say, and you say Jordan and Amman, right? And you come down here.
So what could happen is that if whilst he's traveling, once he's become musafir, if he's feeling really weak by that point, then because he's traveling at that time, he can break it. If that's the case. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. That if during that time a person is feeling very weak because of the fast, then because he's already musafir now and he's feeling weak, so then he can break it. if he's feeling weak.
What if you're traveling, but like you also do miss iftar? Is your fast accepted?
Yes, fast still accepted.
Sometimes like if you take suhoor you take the spicy food.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe you feel like acidity.
Mm.
Acidity means it's not vomiting.
Yeah, yeah.
Like food also come out.
Mm-hmm.
But that it didn't come out. You will not break the fast.
No, that would not. So this is important as well. That part of having a good fast is that we should eat good suhoor as well. So things which are munasib and appropriate to your health, that's good as well. And make sure you eat those things which make it easy for our fast for the rest of the day.
When someone is feeling nauseous and then he vomits but he swallows it back, it was less than a mouthful, and again he does it again, and together adds up to a mouthful. He swallows both of them.
That would make
What if it's like there's a while?
2 different times. You can ask me later, inshallah.
If you're like traveling and then you aren't fasting, but then you get home before it's thawed, then do you imitate the fast?
Yes, that's correct.
And also you mentioned
Inshallah, we'll take the last 2 questions now. No. We'll make it 3. I think he had a question too.
questions like that. You said the fasting is to stay away those things. But fasting of those are the fasting of the body. How about the spiritual fasting? Like
Staying away from all haram things, that's all fasting. That's correct. No. Your question?
My question is about the meaning of the fasting.
Yes.
Like we said, since Ramadan is coming, so theoretically we have made intention to fast, right? So will that count as cover of 30 days of
So every the niyyah has to be made for each day. For each day it needs to be made. So now you can make niyyah up until from Maghrib of the previous of the night, all the way until shortly before Zawal. So the time this time is called Ad-Dahwa al-Kubra, which means the halfway point between Fajr and Maghrib. When Fajr time enters and Maghrib time. So you take the halfway point in between these two. Up until that time, you can make intention of that day. So all the way from Maghrib of the previous day, up until the halfway point. So let's say, for example, someone, every day, right after he does iftar, he makes an intention for the next day from that point. That's permissible. You can do that. You broke today's fast, you did iftar. For the next day, you make intention from right now. That's valid. And this intention can go on until, and a person has the ability to make an intention until the halfway point between Fajr and Maghrib the next day.
About zakat, I like to ask you one small thing.
No.
People are like me or someone else, they're holding zakat till month of Ramadan. Or more sawab. Someone say 11 times, someone say 21 times. But I do, within a whole year, I start to do whenever I want. So is anything like that, less sawab or more sawab or something like that?
Any action that we do in Ramadan, obviously that's multiplied. Now that doesn't mean to say that we don't do anything throughout the year and just wait for Ramadan. What that means is that whatever is done in Ramadan, that will be multiplied. But doing good deeds throughout the year, that's also important. That's also part of the sunnah. So that's going to help us in Ramadan. If a person says, I'm not going to do any deeds or nothing outside of Ramadan, then he also won't do anything in Ramadan because he's not in that habit. So he should be doing it throughout, inshallah, the year. This will be the last question.
even though shaitan is locked up during Ramadan, right? Why do we still feel like doing the sin like over and over?
So this is a good question. Why does a person sin although shaitan is locked up? For 2 reasons. Because a person still has his nafs with him. Nafs means the carnal self, the desire the person has. That's still over there, right? So although shaitan is locked up, but our own carnal self and what a person is connected with throughout the year, that's still there. If I can give you an example, if you've ever made Kool-Aid before, you put something into it and then you stir it, right? But when you stop stirring and you take your spoon out, it's still moving. Is that correct? Or does it stop right away? It still moves. So just because there is a withdrawal of a factor, that doesn't mean that it's going to stop immediately. Because a person's habit is already there. So now it takes some time to remove that habit. So that's why throughout the year a person should, other days as well should be fasting, doing other ibadat, so that he keeps that. Right. Inshallah, we'll end the session over here. We make dua that Allah Ta'ala accepts all of our fasting and all of our ibadat in this month of Ramadan. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanak bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Yeah, tea and samosas. Go forward, inshallah. Help yourself.